So Heather, welcome to Investing with Grove.
Thank you, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. So let's start at the beginning. For those viewers who may not know, can you outline the duties of a transfer agent and describe their role in the capital markets?
Yeah, for sure. So the transfer agent, as you mentioned in your intro, is a foundational role for every single publicly traded company. Our role is to act as the intermediary between the company and its shareholders, and we also handle many other functions as well. Our really primary role is to maintain the integrity of the ownership records. We need to ensure that every issuance, every transfer is, not only complete but also accurate. It needs to be valid, it needs to be compliant, and also protected against fraud. Um, to add to that, we're essentially the gatekeeper for to clear shares going into the public market. So for Endeavour Trust, we're now the fourth largest transfer agent in Canada. We're both a US and a Canadian transfer agent under one corporation. So what this means is in Canada, we coordinate with CDS as a depository, and in the US, we coordinate with DTC, which is the equivalent of CDS in the US. Further to that, we also, we operate in many other functions as well. There's distribution of dividends. We hold funds in trust. There's a lot of corporate action support whenever there's a name change, consolidation. There's also proxy voting and meeting tabulations. We manage the distribution of shareholder materials, tabulate votes at shareholder meetings. We act as independent scrutineer, all to ensure compliance with voting proxy regulations. We also have to adhere to certain requirements as well. So there's KYC requirements, which I'm sure everybody's aware of. Anti-money laundering regulations like FinTrack in Canada, and then in the US, there's also SEC requirements that we need to adhere to.
So why do you think it matters more than people realize, or maybe why do you think that people underappreciate the value of the transfer agent?
Yeah, good question, Ben. I think a lot of people don't realize how much trust in the market depends on the transfer agent role working smoothly. Transfer agents are right at the point where shares exchange hands. So we're the ones helping to prevent fraud. We're the ones verifying who's involved, and we need to also stay in sync with the depositories. In our case, both in Canada and the US. Not only that, we're the official gatekeepers of shareholder ownership. So maintaining accuracy is critical to preserving trust and confidence in the market. There's also compliance with securities laws, applying proper legends and hold periods to shares. We need to ensure KYC and AML requirements are met. And there's a lot of timelines as well involved. For example, we need to ensure DRS statements are delivered to shareholders within a prescribed period of time. That being said, at Endeavour, we have very strong internal controls because, errors can impact financings, trade settlements. It can negatively affect an audit. So it's really important that everything is properly documented and also always compliant. And I'd say, the last thing to add to that as well is efficient processing is not only a positive experience for the client, but it also helps to it does reduce risk for all parties and saves everyone time and money.
Interesting. And so I think maybe one way to maybe frame that value is to ask the question this way. What would be the first thing to break in the capital markets without a transfer agent?
Um, I'd say, there's a value that's overlooked quite often, and that is service. A pattern we see in general is that when companies tend to grow quickly, the service level declines, and they stop answering their phones. It's hard to reach people, and it's hard for shareholders to reach the transfer agent, get a copy of the DRS statement. We avoid that by cross-training our staff, and rather than them doing the same job over and over again, our team is able to regroup when somebody is away. So we always have somebody backing up, and it's not up to the issuer to have to chase somebody down when somebody's away. We've already got that covered for them. This has really allowed us to grow successfully and still maintain the highest level of service on the front end and lead the industry by example.
And so you've highlighted, and outlined everything that maybe goes into a transfer agent's role. Um, And, I think it's maybe even more complex when you consider the thousands of issuers operating against their own deadlines. And it can become very complex and hard for someone maybe to dissect. So, what do you see as the biggest misconceptions from issuers about what a transfer agent actually handles and how they operate?
Another great question. I'd say definitely there's a misconception that we're all the same, or even that we're a pain point for them. The, the core functions of a transfer agent are the same, but the difference lies in the execution, meaning the quality and the level of service that is provided. So at Endeavor, we don't dictate to our issuers how to do things. We follow their instructions. And for myself, having spent 20 years on the legal side and on the issuer side prior to joining Endeavor, many people really, what I see is they underestimate the depth of interaction that transfer agents have across the entire ecosystem. So whether that's your auditor, your lawyers, we're heavily involved in every single um, service provider. So for us, we ensure that we can be reached quickly. So we have a shared inbox. We have an admin team inbox that's always closely monitored by the whole team. So if somebody's out of the office, as I mentioned earlier, another team member can quickly jump in. This ensures that we have faster response times, and it takes the burden off of the issuer again from having to chase down somebody when their contact is away or sick.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that team approach because when us at Grove visited your offices at the VRIC, it became very apparent very quickly just how aligned everyone on your team was. There was this hive-like mentality, right? This hive mind mentality,
Mhm.
where everyone's working in concert, and there's this kind of, this organic kind of choreography to how everyone's working. And that really is only achieved through team building and cultivating this kind of team first approach.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that you saw that. We've really built a positive culture around being responsive for our issuers and always being able to ensure that they can reach us. Everything works well. Everything is smooth, but then there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of deadlines. There's always a lot of rushes, volume, and that's when the service is either going to hold up or it's going to fall apart. And, if you compare that to an airline, I think many of us have a preferred airline that we like to travel with, but if that flight is delayed or canceled and you're in a pinch and you can't get a hold of anybody to help you, it's a time when you really need them the most and they're not there for you. So perhaps next time when you book a flight, you might be thinking about using a different service provider. So that's, for us at Endeavor, we're very creative in finding solutions for our issuers. We're proud of our ability to work through and simplify complex transactions. And it's nice that our clients constantly acknowledge this and other service professionals as well. They always compliment about how easy we are to work with. Um, I think to add to that as well, we really respect everybody's time. So if somebody walks into our office and you mentioned you were in our office a couple of months ago, uh, we'll invite you to come in and sit down. We'll offer you a coffee or a latte. We'll complete any forms that you need help with. And the reason we do this is so that, that person doesn't have to leave the office and then come back again. It's just like any other financial institution. We can verify your ID, and we can process on the spot, then we're happy to help. I thought of another misconception that I'd like to talk about, and that's turnaround times. So, you know, why has it become industry norm that regular processing time is 48 to 72 hours? Again, going back to respecting time and at capital markets, everything is a rush. Everything needs to be done instantly or yesterday. So shouldn't same day service just be the norm? Um, and really for us, that is our norm is same day service. And because of that, we don't need to charge rush fees to our issuers as well. And another point as well is technology. So we use technology that allows us to provide the fastest service in the industry. And I know, some transfer agents say that they're tech forward, but processing times are still 48 to 72 hours. And then there's also rush fees on top of that. So, I think improving on technology should ensure that the customer experience is also being improved. And for us, if somebody calls us and says, why didn't this happen yesterday? We get very disappointed and we'll run out and we'll pick up that transaction and we'll make sure that we process it right away.
Yeah, that plane analogy is a good one, and it's certainly something that lands, I think, with our clients, pardon the pun. And so shifting focus to the issuer's perspective, here at Grove, the majority of our clients are already publicly trading, but we do have a few startup companies who will be seeking the public markets in their future. And so at what stage of their growth should they engage their transfer agent?
I mean, issuers come in at various stages, but it's always recommended to come in early. And there are a couple of reasons for that. It helps keep the cap table clean so the issuer doesn't need to backdate or fix missing issuances. In doing so, it helps to reduce their legal fees or higher costs for a law firm to manage or rectify the cap table or clean up errors. Ultimately, it reduces risk for the issuer when we're managing the cap table early on. Uh, Also Endeavor doesn't charge any monthly fees, so this is very advantageous for any issuer, especially if a transaction is delayed. They don't have to worry about receiving a bill from us each month if there is no activity. And this is also great for CPC companies who are waiting for a qualifying transaction. Now they don't have to burn through their monthly cash as they're sometimes waiting years, right?
Right, yeah. And so to build off of those points, what would be the most common frustrations that you hear and see from issuers?
Definitely slow response. Um, Troubles with being able to get on the phone quickly or get a quick response. We hear a lot of frustrations from shareholders that they can't reach the transfer agent, especially by phone. This, as I mentioned before, capital markets, everything is about speed and needing answers quickly. So every deal moves quickly, and so should your transfer agent. I guess another point as well is the billing transparency that we see, or lack of. It doesn't matter the size of the issuer. Issuers are paying monthly ongoing fees and annual fees, and many of them are not clear about what they're actually getting for that, especially when there's little or no activity for them. So with Endeavor, our billing approach is different. We are fully transaction based. So issuers always know what they're being billed for and they know when they're going to receive a bill.
And so now, same question. So what are the frustrations, but now from the investor's perspective?
From an investor perspective, I'd say being able to clearly articulate the process of depositing shares into a broker account, when we can clearly articulate for them, it's been very helpful for them. So we can explain the difference between using a full service and a discount brokerage. I'd say the second point of friction is difficulty in obtaining a DRS statement. So some cases, there's some transfer agents that will only send it out by regular mail and not by email. So investors sometimes are waiting weeks to receive their shares. Uh, and we operate differently at Endeavor. The shareholder can simply phone us. Of course, we need to verify them. And if we have their email already on file, we'll walk them through the process and we'll send it out by email. So from an investor perspective, the other frustration we often hear is around obtaining a medallion stamp required for a share transfer form. it seems to be more and more, like increasingly more difficult for them to obtain this. And at Endeavor, we use a common sense approach. If you can walk into a bank and bring your government issued ID as a way of verification, why is this same concept not followed in the transfer agent business?
And I think one of those maybe those perceived kind of frictions is how difficult it is for issuers to change their transfer agent. And we talked about it at the top of the interview, where there's this kind of misconception that every transfer agent is the same. And so I think what ends up happening is that a lot of companies they see kind of that headache of that, switching process and they don't see the value on the other side because in the end they'll just end up getting the same service, right? And so maybe let's break that down. How difficult is it really to switch transfer agents?
Well, I mean, I remember when I was working on the issuer side, I had the same fear of switching transfer agents because I really didn't understand the process and how it works, how it would affect our shareholders and other partners as well. But now having done the switch both as an issuer and having done hundreds on the transfer agent side, it's really a seamless process, Ben. There's really surprisingly not much for the issuer to do other than complete KYC forms and auto onboarding forms. And then they'll have to settle their final invoice, of course, with their prior transfer agent. Most of the switches is handled between the two transfer agents, and it's very seamless for shareholders as well. I'd say, I often hear issuers ask about timing of making a switch. Can they do this during an AGM? Maybe they're under a CTO. Maybe they have a financing coming up? So I think it's really important to work with us, and we'll make sure that the timing works. Surprisingly, the switch can be done pretty much any time, and it is seamless. Especially if it's under a CTO, this is a great time to switch, actually. If you have an escrow agreement in place or a warrant indenture, this also is done between transfer agents, and not much for the issuer to do. I can't understate how seamless it really is. So.
Amazing. Yeah. And so maybe just turning the page here, I think the next kind of set of questions, I'd like to get into the trends going on in the transfer agent space right now. So what are the biggest forces driving change in the transfer agency space? Are they technological? Are they regulatory? And ultimately, what should issuers and investors be paying attention to?
Yeah, good question, Ben. Feedback that I've seen from a lot of issuers is they're kind of going back to they like the boutique feeling of working with their transfer agent. They like a lot of touch points. They like that it's easy to reach us. Um, Technology, of course, is a big one as well. But as I mentioned before, that technology, really should have the goal of enhancing the customer experience. So shorter, faster processing time, access to data, certain reports. There's a lot of data that transfer agents have, and we want to be able to share that with them. So um, for external trends, I'd say there's been an increase more recently in international trading volume, especially on the OTC. So because of this, we've seen a pretty, an increase in the number of issuers listing on the OTC or even doing cross listings in general. And if issuers are looking to do this, like, we can always refer them to qualified groups like OTC Advisory to help them do this.
And so, building off of those trends that are driving change within the transfer agency space, looking ahead 5, 10 years, how do you see the role of the transfer agent within the capital markets changing, or how do you see those, day-to-day tasks changing?
Looking ahead 5 to 10 years, issuers want more transparency. They want more information about data, data integration between exchanges and transfer agents and brokers and clearing firms. So there's perhaps a unified system to manage that. Um, Advanced technology, again, is important, something that allows for instant access to the data, near instant processing. I'd say we hear issuers, it'd be nice to have visibility into the movements into CDS as well.
Yeah, we certainly see here on our side of the fence that, issuers are very kind of data driven these days, and they have this big appetite to take in as much as possible and kind of leverage some of the new tools out there to quickly kind of digest it. And so it'll be really interesting to see how the transfer agent can, enable all of that analysis, right? And so
Mm.
we've covered a fair amount in our conversation today, and you've, provided our viewers with some great insight. As a closing thought, what would be your one piece of advice to a CEO or a CFO about how to get the most out of their relationship with their transfer agent?
You know, Having come from the issuer side again, there's a lot that a transfer agent can do to help manage the cap table. But not only that, and I do wish I knew this myself back in the day, but transfer agents can help manage the warrant register as well, RSU register, option registers, all of kind of those admin heavy processes. That's something that we're quite able to do for them. And we do have some issuers utilizing that and absolutely loving the service. I'd say also that, transfer agents are very well connected with all industry partners. So if an insurer is looking to engage a law firm or an auditor or obtain an OTC listing, we can really help steer you in the right direction. For us, we want to see our issuers succeed. So, of course, we're going to do anything we can to help support them.
Great. Well, thank you again, Heather, for your time today. Like I said, you bring a very well-rounded perspective to this discussion. And so, I'm sure our viewers will appreciate your insight. And for those viewers who have additional questions or would like to hear more about Endeavor and their services, we will include contact information in the video description below, as well in the newsletter. So thank you, Heather, once again.
Thank you, Ben. It's been a pleasure.